Do this. That's what I'm trying to do it. But nothing know where it was. And she'd been out at the station in New York. So I went down and told her, it gets you better when you get sense. I'm fine.
They were in Linz first.
Yes, I traveled all over.
I'm still having trouble getting it.
Now I really want to care.
I'm not getting it.
So I find
And Norway. All lowercase, all. That's a very.
Definitely pay. But sometimes I end up, but I'll send it.
No, then it says that was the last way. Then we did her, and then it was one of the, so that it's morning that she was. I know, well, you know, I mean.
Good morning. The nice day today, huh? So our first speaker is going to be on Zoom. Say hi to Martha. So Martha is from New View Co-Housing Development, and she's going to talk to you about how co-housing developments work. And so she's going to be our first speaker. If you have any questions, just let me know, and then I'll direct them to Martha just in case she can't hear you. All right, so we'll get started. Martha Rounds from New View Co-Housing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's so great to be here with you, even if it's just on Zoom. We've all gotten used to this by now. I have a little connection to Sherburne, which is I used to babysit for Jim and Angie Wakefield, who raised their kids in Sherburne. So I have a sense of your beautiful town, and I'm really happy to be here with you. So I'm here to tell you about co-housing and how you can think about whether that might fit for you as an option for living as you think about like going forward. So I'm going to be showing you around my neighborhood, but some things to think about as you're looking at these pictures are like, do I enjoy being with people? Do I enjoy my own privacy, but that's not enough for me? I want to be connected to others. And do I enjoy working on projects and working on activities with other people? So if those questions, you have a yes to any of those, co-housing might be a thing for you to think about going forward. So the next slide, Doug, please. So just as a way of orienting ourselves, what is co-housing? It's intentional community, collaborative housing where residents are actively participating in the design and also for long-term, the operating of their neighborhoods. So we have privacy as co-housers, we have privacy, and we also have community. And many people have reflected to us that it's a really beautiful antidote to the isolation that many of us in this country feel today. We're in our houses, we're on our, we're on our computers, we're on social media. Our kids, like in my situation, live far away. We feel isolated, we feel alone. And co-housing is a way to kind of open our doors and windows of ourselves to being in connection with neighbors, no matter where, like in my case, where my kids live, where the rest of my family is, I am connected to people. So in a co-housing community, typically in Massachusetts, but I think in other parts of the country, they're set up legally as condominiums. So like in a condominium, you have your own space as an individual or as a family, but there's also I'll call it communal space that everybody in the neighborhood owns and has access to. So that would be open space. Co-housing communities always have a common house, and I'll show you some pictures of ours, and then social spaces that are shared. It's frequently everyone gets their mail in the same place. So in the design of a co-housing community is always finding ways for that people can non-intentionally connect with each other. So everybody gets their mail. So you go to your mailbox and you find your neighbors, and you get chatting with your neighbors over mail or walking from the parking lot. So if you can imagine this, it's creating a sense of privacy, but also creating intention to make connections with others. Okay, next slide. So since you can't come here to Acton, here's a little tour of New View, and it gives you some ideas about co-housing and also shows you our beautiful site.
New View Co-housing Community is located in West Acton, Massachusetts, and consists of 24 households on about 20 acres of land. New View's campus is divided up into 4 neighborhoods with a mixture of single-family homes and duplexes. The households are connected by a series of footpaths. We park in 2 main parking lots, and our primary road, called Spring Peeper Lane, is mostly designated
for walking.
Sorry, there's some lag there.
That's okay. If it doesn't work, Doug, we can just stop it and I'll keep talking.
Okay. My favorite. Yep, sorry about that.
Yeah, so yeah, why don't we stop it and then I can just speak to you. You've seen a few images, and yeah, so there are some of the houses. We have duplexes.
was established
Okay.
in 1995 by
That's okay.
a group of like-minded people who wanted to live in community. Before it was New View, the land had been a homestead and a farm, and the designers were committed.
Yeah, I think it will be.
Yeah, let's let it go, Doug.
All right, thanks.
There's plenty of other things to say. We'll just go to the next slide then. Yeah, so this is just if you're interested in the video, it says there are 24 homes on roughly 20 acres. But part of the beauty of co-housing, or the character of co-housing, is those houses, those 24 units are built on, I think, 6 acres. So they're all the people and buildings are clustered in the center to allow plenty of open space for activities, for just to have a lot of open space around us, to kind of have nature near us. That was a really important part of our community. So the next slide. If you're interested in co-housing communities, everyone that you come to will have a set of foundational principles by which people try to live. And they're not the same. We wrote these, I think maybe we had some originally and we updated these maybe 5 or 7 years ago. So aspects of New View, which I think are typical of many co-housing, or if not all co-housing communities you'll go to, is the sense of we value positive connections, and we also value privacy. The idea of taking responsibility personally and together for what happens there, how things go, for physical structures, for things that we own together, like tools and equipment, that we all actually share in the responsibility and care for those things. Another aspect of co-housing, which is true for us and it's true for communities that you might be looking at, is that we value participation and active contribution to community life. And what we've discovered, and this is not just me, this is sort of a national understanding, is that people seem to do best or are happiest when they're actively involved in the community in some way. And every community has many committees, like we have the steering committee, we have a maintenance committee, we have a common house living committee, we have a caring committee, we have an activities committee. So people take responsibility for the workings of the community. And many people who have been, if you're involved in a church or a civic organization, you naturally create connections that way. And the other, number 7, celebrating life together. Yes, in co-housing, there are many gatherings of celebration, and we like coming together for fun, and also supporting each other in good and difficult times. So this was many years ago, but it still would happen. When I had my second child here, I didn't cook, literally did not cook for 6 weeks. We've had people who needed to go into the hospital, and then they come out, and the community can, for a short-term basis, not on a long-term basis, but the community can be a place of care and connection, and during times when, of recovering from things that are going on outside. Okay, next slide. So if you were coming to visit me and you wanted to learn about co-housing, we would start at the Common House. And every community has a Common House, and this is the place where people come together for meals and activities. In our case, at New View, we have quite a few musicians, so there's quite a bit of there are musical events that happen there, theater. It's used for yoga. We also have Girl Scouts there. There are parties, holiday gatherings, and of course, weekly meetings. So this is a place, this is the beating heart of any co-housing community, is the Common House. So the next slide, Doug. And the center of that is the dining room. So you can see on the left-hand side, it's dressed up for a party. We don't have white tablecloths at every meal, but it can be used for a party. Or on the right-hand side, it's set up for a regular meal. And I think in the back, near where that statue is, there's a small circle of chairs for a meeting. So the Common House is typically a very flexible space that allows, like the chairs get moved around, the tables get moved around, and a lot happens in the Common House in any community. A lot of them have, and as we do, like a workshop. We have a kids' room, we have an exercise area. So the Common House is where people come together for a lot of activities. So the next slide. Okay, this is after a meal, which is Common House meals are really essential to every community that I've ever been to or heard about. So people just sitting around during the meal and after. And then the next slide, Doug. And of course, there is always the cleanup, which people take turns cooking, people take turns cleaning. So people to things that they enjoy doing in the common house, there's always a chance to do them. The next slide, Doug. Okay, so there's a sense of the common house, and then you've got a little sense just looking at some of the houses and the paths there in that short video. So that it's also, I'd just like to share some of our activities that take place in our neighborhoods. So the next slide, here's Halloween. Halloween is a big holiday for us, and I think many places, because most Americans, if not a lot of them, participate in Halloween. So that has emerged as a big holiday for us. The next slide. In the winter, I mean, we have a beautiful site. I wish you could stand here with me today and see, like, we have a lot of conservation land around us. So here's this beautiful picture in the wintertime. But one of the things that I'll point out, which is important for us as New Englanders, is winter for us here is not a time where we're stuck in our houses and feeling isolated and waiting for spring to come, which is the way I used to feel before I lived here. Winter is a time where we use the common house to gather. So it's a time of particular connection, actually, fall, winter, spring, more than the summer. So next slide, Doug. So there's outdoor play. And this is the slide on the left is an older slide. When we used to have a lot of kids living here, and we don't have as many, but people are outside playing. People are sharing sledding. This is one of our elder residents who was sledding on the hill with some kids. We also, when there's a snowstorm, we particularly love snowstorms because nobody can drive anywhere, but everybody can walk down to the common house. So like like when traditionally in New England, we tend to be stuck at home, we just go to the common house and there will always be somebody around with us. Next slide. There are more formal things that happen. This is a theater piece that was put together by kids and adults in the neighborhood. I think somebody wrote a play about the Trojan horse, and the kids and adults in the neighborhood created the sets, created the costumes, and then gave a performance for all of us. Next slide. The New Year's Day Music Jam is a huge event for us. People come together. We have a bunch of musicians, as I said, so they provide the backup band, and people come together and sing for each other. And I won't say that I'm sure most co-housing communities don't have a big event like this, but they will have their own events that are sort of central to the community and central sort of points during the year where people come together for a big organized event. Okay, next slide. We also share good times and sadder times. We had a wedding here a couple of years ago. We've had a number of memorial services. Actually, over the weekend, we just had a memorial service for one of our residents who passed. So there are also a lot of special events that happen here. So next slide. Yeah, just as a way of thinking about co-housing, if it's something that you're intrigued by. So you have a home and you have a neighborhood and you have a way of life all in this one spot, which is your co-housing neighborhood. And for the last slide, Doug, if you'll go to the next one, there's some more information which I can share with you, or you can get that just talks about co-housing in the United States. There is a concept that's emerged in the last 10 or 15 years called senior co-housing. The original communities in the United States, of which we are one, were multi-generational, but it's also emerging much more strongly. And I think senior co-housing where seniors, however they define themselves, come together and create a community for themselves. There's one near us in Massachusetts called the Hager Homestead. And the other thing I want to say is that there's co-housing all over the country. We were one of the first in it took root in Massachusetts and California, but there's now co-housing all over the country, and it's something that you could think about. I would think about. So my kids live in Brooklyn, and I have a couple grandchildren and my son and his wife in Colorado. If I were ever to move to Colorado, I would look for co-housing as a place that I could land near my kids, but not, but have a community around me. So it's something to think about if you want to move into a situation where you have sort of an instant community or an immediate community, or if you want to live near your other family members and you don't necessarily expect, as I would not, them to like create a little house for you on their property. So it's a way that you can think about being flexible, but not just going into a new place completely alone. So that's all I have prepared, and I'm here to answer any questions you have. Or you can always get in touch with me by email and I can answer questions.
Thank you, Martha. I'm ready to move.
Yeah,
Does
it's
any,
wonderful.
any questions? Okay.
Work financially.
Martha, they want to know how it works financially. Like, do you purchase a house or?
Yes, yeah, it's set up, they're set up like a condominium so that you buy, you purchase your home and you have your building and an exclusive use area around you. And when it comes time to leave, you sell it as you would a normal condominium.
I have a question. Did like the community, if I wanted to go and purchase a property, does like the community screen you, or you have to be accepted, or you could just purchase and hope for the best?
Well, I think we have found that a screening process, it's not really a screening. I'd call it a get to know you process. Like if somebody wants to move to Newview and we have a house available, we ask them to come to a couple meals, come to a couple meetings, meet people. And it's not really, the screening is so that you know what you're getting into. Like, have you found people that you have an affinity for, or do you like people? I mean, people tend to, in the United States, we think, oh, I'm going to buy a house and live in this house. But if you're thinking about co-housing, you have to think, I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to buy a community of people. So do I like them? So I think I don't know the extent to which any community that you might be interested in would have a screening process, but it would be really super wise for you to insist on meeting people, going to meals, doing some things there. So you feel like, hey, I want to do this too. I mean, that was how I got hooked on co-housing. I enjoyed the people so much.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nancy, how often do you eat together?
The question is, how often
Yeah.
do you eat together?
Yeah, great question. We usually have a cooked meal. A few people get together and cook a meal once a week, and then often a potluck too. So we try for at least twice a week. But that varies again by community.
Yeah, Nancy?
What is the age range of residents and what happens if someone gets sick and needs longer term care?
Okay, so what's the age of residents and if somebody needs long-term care?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it depends on the community. Like as I said, there's senior co-housing where people I think are probably over the age of 55. Most co-housing communities are multi-generational, so there may be everything from, people who are, young families to elders. And that's what New View started out as, and we really enjoy having kids, but not everybody wants to have kids in their lives. And in our case, again, it would be something. This would be a really good question to ask any community you're interested in. We can provide short-term support, so maybe 4 to 6 weeks of like meals or rides or other kinds of support. Of course, we don't do any kind of medical support. We don't do, in-home nursing, like things like that that you can get on the outside, you would get on the outside. If somebody falls into a situation, we've never had a situation where somebody required long-term care, but I think if somebody requires long-term nursing care, it would be better for them. They would need to bring somebody in to live with them or set that up for themselves, or they'd have to find another place to live. But it depends, of course, on people's resources. There are people here who they have an empty room and they're planning to have somebody come in and live with them when the time comes. So it depends on resources and what you want for yourself.
Yep.
That was kind of a long.
I have a question. Do you have municipal water and sewer, and also do you offer a community garden?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Any other?
You mentioned as having additional support such as rides or meals, and I'm just curious, off-site, what are the closest like grocery stores, hospitals, or gas stations, just things in the daily that one would need access to?
Like how accessible are you to town, I guess?
Yeah, it depends on where you are, where the community sits. I mean, I think they're often put near other people. Like it's kind of a little bit rare for a co-housing community to be way off, in the wilderness someplace. People who love community tend to want to live near others. And in our case, we have easy access to, there's a village that's walkable near us that's got pretty much everything you need. There's a very, very good farm stand a quarter of a mile away. And then there's, we're in a robust area in terms of the resources we have and need.
Lawn care and snow removal.
What about lawn care and snow removal?
That's such a good question. We started out doing a lot of that ourselves. Okay, we've aged out of wanting to do that all the time now. So we do have somebody who does snow removal for us. We stopped doing our own walkways about 10 years ago. And lawn care, we do on our own because we have, if you remember the map, we have probably at least 5 or 6 acres of grassland. So we share the mowing, and the community has committed itself to electrification. So I personally just learned yesterday how to use a ride-on electric mower, and yeah, so people are willing to share in the mowing. Snow removal, not so much anymore, but yeah, mowing, it's a pleasure for some of us.
Nancy?
Ask if there's a committee that runs the common house? Or
Yes.
Okay, yeah. That would be big, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important. Yeah.
The community
take charge of anything that happens in your own house? You like getting a new roof or,
Do you
Yeah,
do-
so if I think I heard the question. So like in a condominium, the community owns the exterior surfaces, roof and siding of your house. In our case, we have wood siding. You own studs in. That is typical Massachusetts condo language. So yeah, the community takes responsibility. Our maintenance committee, of which my husband is a member, is responsible for the upkeep of all the exteriors and the roofs. And so they're overseeing that and working with contractors to fix or update things as they're needed.
Built anywhere near here?
Do you know if there are any facilities being built, new ones being built, or what, how do you even start the process?
Oh, okay. So you could look online. And on that last slide, so maybe you could share that those.
Put that in there.
Yeah. Yeah, so the cohousing.org has listings of communities all over the country that are looking for, that have houses open. I know there are several communities in Massachusetts, and you could just do a search for Massachusetts co-housing, and the names of the communities will come up, I think. There's also a listing for SAGE, SAGE, on that last slide I showed you, which is for senior co-housing around the country, and they have listings of senior co-housing around the country. So yeah, it's definitely, it's accessible, it's around, it's no longer kind of a weirdo thing. So I think you can find them online, or if you really can't find anything, send me an email and I can point you. I'm happy to do that.
Plus, some of the sites that I had gone on have a wait list. So if you were interested, you could put your name, and then when a house becomes available, they let you know. So
Exactly. That's what we do.
thank you so much. This was very informative. I appreciate it and hope you feel better.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to talk with you all.
All
Good
right.
luck in your
Thanks,
search.
Martha. So that's one way to look into to see if that might be something that works for you. And like Martha said, some are just strictly senior housing, some are intergenerational, so you could pick and choose. And the Hager Homestead one, I believe, is all seniors. So, and it's pretty popular around here, and I'll include it in the link, the email that I send out. So now we've learned about co-housing. We're going to learn about shared housing, and Lisa, okay. She's from, she works at the Callahan Center, which is the senior center over in Framingham. And she's working on a new program, this housing sharing program, which is also another option.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me. I talk fast, slow me down. I've been a clinical social worker for 40 years, and I've been working for the Council on Aging in Framingham for about 18 years. How this all started, it started about 6 years ago. I went to a Massachusetts Council on Aging conference, and I went to a program called Nesterly, which is a home share program that started in New York City. And then I kind of forgot all about it. Framingham has a lot of new high-end housing. And so people that have been living in apartments for many, many years and are happy living there, the rent goes up, but they're okay with it, are now being faced with, oh, we're going to sell our whole building, or, oh, my son wants to do the whole place over, so we can jack the rent up as much as possible. And so people that are on a fixed income, their partner has passed away, they don't have their Social Security or whatever, are really stuck. And we are hearing more and more of those situations, and, you know, it's a housing epidemic. We cannot build enough senior housing quick enough. So that's been in my head for about 1.5 years. Some of the new high-rise apartments in the Framingham area near the train station, they have moderate income housing, and people think that means low income. That is still $4,000 or $5,000 a month. It's not subsidized housing, so it sounds good. We have 10% of moderate housing. It really is not a good situation for people that are on a fixed income. They don't want to touch their savings, whatever. So the concept we have is a senior home share, a senior with another senior. There are models where college students go in with a senior, they pay a little bit of rent, but they walk their dog and they do their laundry and they do a lot of those things. Ours is just a senior with another senior. I started to communicate with Nestily online probably about 1.5 years ago, and she connected me to Rosie. Can't say her last name. She's from Jewish Family Service in Metro West. She was contacting Nestily online as well. So she connected me. We know each other. We like each other. We work collaboratively together on a number of things. So we said, we have to consider doing a pilot because we need immediate impact. Right now, people need housing. How can we be helpful? So Jewish Family Service got a number of grants for the pilot program. I actually have a part-time position, 6 to 8 hours. We're looking for somebody who is willing to recruit houses. We have people who want to move into houses. We don't have enough houses to put people into. So it would be recruiting and promoting. It would be sitting down with somebody at the computer and helping them create a profile. And I'll be more specific as time goes on in the conversation. We call it a home share and not a roommate, because the concept really is you are sharing your home. You are in a home and you're living independently. A lot of older adults, I don't call them seniors, a lot of the older adults, including myself now, they want to be as independent as possible and live in their own home. They don't want to move to Florida. They don't want to sell their home. If they sell their home, then they've got to go somewhere and they may not be able to get what they want for the price that it now costs for any new housing that is out there. They don't want to live with their family members because they want to be independent. So a home share is a really good solution to keep you in your home. One part of it is it helps with your oil bill, your taxes, your water bill, all the expenses that keep going up and up and up. It also helps with companionship, social engagement. You don't live alone in your house. You want somebody to know that, you know, you've got mail coming, or they haven't heard from you. They haven't seen you in 2 or 3 days. Are you okay? You know, that kind of thing. So we think it would be really nice companionship in a lot of ways. It could be simply that you're moving into somebody's house, you have your own separate lives, you do your own thing, and that's just fine. Or it could be something that turns into, let's do a meal once a week. I'm going to the grocery store. Do you need milk? I've got to go to PT. Could you take me a few times? I can, because I'm having knee surgery and I need you to take me to PT. So it's kind of it could be a cooperative kind of living arrangement. It all really does depend. Let's see. So how Nestily works is it's a platform, it's a franchise. So Jewish Family Service of Metro West purchased this franchise called Nestily, and they have a number of features in their program. One of them is an in-depth criminal background check, not just a query. I can't get over how many seniors go on Craigslist to find a roommate. That is kind of scary I don't go on Craigslist. That's scary to me that you're going on Craigslist, but they don't know there's anything else that they can do. They might talk to somebody at their church or synagogue. I'm looking for a roommate, but it's kind of scary. So Nestily does a comprehensive background check, more than a query. there's a platform where you set up your profile, which if you are a homeowner, we take pictures of your house. I do a home visit with somebody else to make sure there's not heavy content. That your railings are safe, that the bathroom's okay. We check out, so we know that the place that somebody would move into would be appropriate. It certainly does matter if somebody has a disability, they can't go on the second floor to a bedroom or to a bathroom. So all that stuff gets worked out in advance. So we create a profile online. I'm looking for somebody who cleans up after themselves, will take their shoes off when they walk in the house, who will respect my property, my home, etc. It is not it is not a lease, it's a contract. So you can write anything into the contract. I don't want grandkids. I don't want your boyfriend or girlfriend coming here. Occasional visits are okay. Do not expect me to take you to PT because I don't want to be doing that. There also are people who have low vision who don't drive anymore. If they had a roommate who does also drive, that could be really helpful for that person as well. The rent is negotiated. The person who has a home says, I'm looking for 1,500, I'm looking for 2,000, I'm looking for 1,000. That could include internet, electricity, and all that stuff, or that's a separate thing. So everything is determined sort of by an agreement. We do an in-depth assessment, kind of like you do when you go to college, when you're trying to find a roommate in a dorm. What time do you wake up? When do you cook? Are you a morning person? Are you a night person? What's your schedule like? Are you in and out? You're doing activities? Are you home all the time and you like to read books and you like to be quiet and you like to be to yourself? We ask all those kinds of questions. So in theory, we would match you with somebody that would be relatively compatible with you. And we all know what people say is not always how it is. So the value of this program is it's a wraparound. If somebody were to go into a home, the first month we check in to see how things are going. If the issue is they're not taking their shoes off and they promised me they were taking their shoes off, a social worker would go back out and sort of mediate to make it all be nicey nice. If it doesn't work out, the social worker would also help somebody move out and find another place to live. If you're a homeowner, your family needs to know that you're doing this so they don't come home at Hanukkah or Christmas and say, what do you mean you have somebody living here? You didn't tell me that. So your family kind of needs to know that you're doing it. It can be helpful to know that, again, there's an in-depth criminal background check, references. Now I'm losing my train of thought, references. And then we also do a profile for the person who's looking to move. I'm looking to move into a home where I'd have my own bathroom. I'd like a big bedroom so that I can have my bedroom / den be in there. You decide what you want to share. Most people would share their entire house. If the laundry is downstairs and you have a disability, you need to know that the woman or man who owns the home is not going to be doing your laundry. So you may have to have some help come in to help you yourself. I did have somebody that was interested in moving into somebody's house, big house. His wife had Alzheimer's and he wanted somebody to move in and pay almost zero rent to be around. So when he needed to go out, his wife would have somebody to have companionship and be busy with and to stay safe. And then we had lunch together. We talked to each other in my office. And then the woman realized, I'm going to be having knee surgery. I can't be on the second floor. So it did not go through because she was smart enough to know this is going to be a problem because the 3 bedrooms that are going to be mine, a den, a library and my bedroom, I can't get up to that floor. So that did not happen. We just have a match, one of our first matches, actually. I have a woman who lived at Chapel Hill on Route 9 in condominiums. She's always had roommates since her husband passed away to help with the cost. And also she doesn't want to live alone. She doesn't want to socialize with somebody a lot, but she doesn't, doesn't want to live alone. And she goes on Craigslist and she gets professionals who are moving to Greater Boston, Greater Metro West, who have a new job and they're not sure what they want to do. And so she takes people in on a short-term basis using Craigslist. So we just got this all arranged. I have another man who took care of his parents his whole life. The family home had to be sold for a number of reasons. He's been sleeping on his sister's couch in Shrewsbury for about 8 months. The young adults are coming home from college and do not want Uncle Ron there for obvious reasons. So he's been really eager to find a place to live, and we've been trying to find a situation that would be a good fit. So they had an introduction, they did their profiles. The other key feature is you do not leave money on your dining room table or on the kitchen. I left a check, I left the money. What happens is money comes out of the person who's renting, it comes out of their checking account and goes directly into your checking account. So there's no messy stuff of, you're not paying me what we agreed to. It kind of is all taken care of. And I think that's a really good feature, actually. There are people who, again, may sell their home, but they don't want to move to Florida or Arizona. They don't know if they want to buy a condominium. They don't know if they want to do the program we just heard about, buy into another situation. They know that they don't want to be socially isolated, and they know they need help with their expenses. They want to leave the house to their children. They don't want to go into their savings. And so somebody who is not sure what they're going to do next, this could be a very good short-term solution until you decide, I am going to buy a condominium, or I guess I am going to go to Florida or whatever. So there's a lot of different positive aspects about doing a home share. It could be somebody for 3 months. You could say, well, let's do it for a year. Let's reassess in 6 months. Obviously, things are going to come up that we don't think of. And again, the value of having a social worker and wraparound is we help you problem solve. I'm not doing a lot of cooking. Well, let's get you Meals on Wheels. The other person doesn't have to have Meals on Wheels. I'm looking for companionship. Okay, let's get you hooked up with Seniors Helping Seniors. That's your own thing. You pay for it. You have your own, person that you're doing things with. I did prepare this. Mutually beneficial reasons for home sharing. Save money on monthly costs of renting or your mortgage. Have extra money for retirement, emergency expenses like a car repair, vacations, or other luxuries. It helps reduce your expenses with utilities and oil and everything. It increases social engagement. And I can speak about women who are relational. A lot of women have a lot of girlfriends still, and they go to lunch and they talk on the phone. And if you moved into somebody's house, you'd be introduced to a whole new social network, and you may all have a really good experience and have the same values and get along well. So it's a chance to have other connections. I'm just going to speak in terms of, ladies like to do that, and they're relational, and we do it all the time. It could create a little bit of a friendship. It could be cooking and sharing a meal, like I said, grocery shopping. Or it could be you share your space and it's a casual conversation, but everybody's doing their own thing. I think in another 4 or 5 years, when the next older adults come up and are looking for housing options, who did not get married at age 18 and only live with their spouse, who lived in a dorm with lots of roommates for a really long time, I think they're going to love this concept because it's beneficial for both parties in general. And I think that's all I want. What are your questions? Yes.
It sounds like your agency does a lot of vetting and so forth. It makes payments easier, but legally at the bottom line, this sounds like a owner-tenant type of.
It is not a lease, it's a contract. There are tax implications. You need to talk to your accountant if you're getting rent coming in. So it is not a lease. I can't be specific about it. It's a contract. So what are the stipulations if you have to remove somebody? There's all those particular questions I don't know how to answer perfectly. So I'm not going to give you an answer to that, but that could have issues, right? Yes. Well, I have the woman who has the condo is an Asian woman, 83 years old, and Ron is a guy and he is 62 years old. So it can be because, I only want to live with another guy. So it's whatever your preference is. And again, we want to really do a good assessment. I love music. I love to read. I love art. I used to be, whatever, and I used to do similar jobs. So, compatibility would be really important so that it would be a good situation. But again, we have to sort of wait and see. So it's a contract and not a lease. Yes.
Not very familiar with zoning at all, but are there any zoning issues with this, or are you sort of left alone?
There are no zoning issues, as far as I'm aware. In Framingham, you can have no more than 4 unrelated people in a house and so many dogs and cats. I don't know what that is. I have 2 dogs and it's fine. But it's not a separate apartment. It's you're sharing your house with somebody else. You're the homeowner. You can do what you want. Obviously, if the person you're sharing with does come home late at night and causes lots of commotion and your neighbors are not happy, you know, we'd have to address like, geez, you said you were kind of on the quiet side and you're always out and you're kind of loud when you come home. We'd have to address that if it became a neighborhood issue. If somebody has a car, is there a place to park? If you don't drive anymore, we sign you up for the ride so that you're not stranded. If you have a home that's way out and nothing's around, somebody may say, that's exactly what I want. I lived in Beacon Hill. I don't want to live congested, although they're beautiful condos and apartments there, brownstones. Or I want to live closer to the library. My doctors are, you know, in this town. I want to be closer to my doctors or, you know, providers. So you can specify kind of what you're looking for. Is this an up or a down? How does it sound? Other places in the country are doing it. And we are beginning to do it. We're looking for people who have a home that they want to share for a variety of reasons. We really don't have as many as we'd like to have in order to match somebody who would be appropriate for you. I'm going to leave my literature here and feel free to call me. Yes.
Like a stranger.
Yes, just like a stranger. Yes, like when you move into a dorm, you move in with a stranger who's paying a lot of tuition, a lot of college costs. Yes. But again, if it's a short-term agreement, let's see how this goes for 3 months. Now, somebody's not going to move all their stuff into somebody's house, like Ron's moving in June 1st. She already has a bed and a bureau. She doesn't want his stuff. So he can't, you know, he has his stuff in storage. So somebody can't move all their belongings in your house and then you can't get rid of them and, you know, all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Like 2 couples, we do that.
I think that's a fabulous idea. That's a really good idea. You'd have to have a big enough home and enough bedrooms and enough bathrooms, you know, to do that. The person doesn't have to have their own bathroom. It'd be nice, but they don't have to have that. That's not a requirement. And I went over all this with Ron and with this other woman who's renting, you know, what cabinet space do they have? How are you going to divide the refrigerator? All those things that you think about when you live with somebody else. What arrangements do you have? And the place, this condo has fitness center, washer dryers, pool, lots of stuff that the person can use, and they have to abide by the condo association rules and regulations. There is no smoking, period, kind of thing. And again, we would have a clearer discussion. If you are a smoker and you're smoking in your car, you still smell, this is my thing, you still smell the smoke. This is not going to work, even if you're smoking outside. Yes.
Fees for this program?
There's a 2% fee that Nestle charges the person who is renting. And the person who is renting pays an initial $200 to begin the process and use the platform. And first, you have to have 2 months you have to be able to show that you have 2 months worth of money in the bank. You don't have to do first lets and security, but they want 2 months up front that they take immediately to get sort of going. And, you know, there'll be discussions about, do you have, you know, can you tell me your general income? Can you tell me if you can afford, you know, to move? We don't want somebody to move into the house and like, oh, I actually don't have any money. You know, we want to prevent that. So we would do our very best to do a good in-depth assessment and ask people to share information that they may or may not want to share. Like you have to give your social security card so they can do an in-depth criminal check, for example. Okay, thank you.
I'll have her information as well. Thanks, Lisa. So finally, there's been a lot of talk about accessory dwelling units, tiny houses, in-law apartments. So we have the Sherborne Board of Health here. and they're going to talk to you about these issues. So we have Daryl, who's the chair of the Board of Health, Mark Orman, and then our newest Board of Health staff person, Jessica Edwards. She just joined us last Monday. So they're going to talk to you about what goes into those accessory dwelling units.
Okay, so you could, excuse me a moment. All right, next slide. I'm going to start with a little bit of an intro of why is there even a big deal about septic system. So, well, this will be a little tough. I can't point as easily. All right. I can just pull it off. Okay, great. Okay. I'm sure it's not easy to read the words from there. They're small. I just pulled this out of an EPA document, made a few amendments, and it's a simplified system. So there are obviously more complexities, but the general pieces are you've got the house, you have a pipe coming out, and you see that box there. So first the fluid goes into the box and some settling takes place, solids drop out. There's some breakdown, bacteria is active in there, hopefully taking care of degrading the waste that's going out. And then as the liquid builds up, it comes out that kind of pipe. And this is your septic field out here. And so the water goes out and it flows and it's distributed over the ground. Again, it's going to filter through the ground. There may be bacteria in there that continue to address the contaminants that are in the septic effluent, and also the soil does filtering. So that's why we also have a big deal about how much soil there is before you hit groundwater. The more soil, the better, the more filtering goes on. There's a chance for drying out, which kills off bacteria and viruses. So all very important. And that's why we care about it, because here's the other part why we care about it. Over here in the yellow, that's a well. And so in Sherborne, this gray mass is representing bedrock. Most of the wells, except for very old wells in town that may have been dug wells or even just shallow wells, almost the vast majority of wells in town go into bedrock. And the way they get water in rock is that there are fractures in the rock. And so I added these lines to demonstrate that there are cracks in the rock down below. And the well is intercepting with those bedrock fractures. So here's some of the complexity with this. So underneath the septic field, there are some material can go down, and there's not an underground river. This is different. It's just a representation. Really, the groundwater is just in between all the spaces of the soil particles. And then when it gets to the bedrock, the water will find these fractures and it'll travel through the fractures. But it doesn't have to only be fractures that are directly underneath well, it does have to be in some ways that are directly underneath the septic system that may have the contaminants in the septic effluent, because the fractures travel in all different directions. They're not just straight down, they're not across, they're just all different and very unpredictable. We don't have the technology to really know for sure what's happening. So over here, so this one is underneath the field, but then it is coming over here. That's just an example. So in any case, that's the general dynamic of what's going on and why we care about trying to keep it clean and also recognize the groundwater moves. So a lot of complexities. Happy to take any kind of questions on that. Next. Thank you. All right. So the Board of Health is sort of almost at the end of the line of making sure everything's okay with planning and board and others about before you get to us. But I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, and then we can deal with, your particular questions afterwards. Oh, all right, yes.
It's a little stronger and a little slower.
Okay. Oh, all right. Let's see. If I put it closer, does that help? Okay. All right. So, first thing, size of your property. And the reason that's important is that the state septic regulations only allow 4 bedrooms per acre unless you have a more expensive special system put in, and you can go up to 5 bedrooms per acre. And sometimes 6. Yeah. 4 and 5. So very rarely the 660. Okay. So that's why if you have a 1 acre property, just know it's going to be maybe a little harder if you need to make your system bigger to bring in, maybe to expand your house. If you're talking about keeping your house as it is and using existing bedrooms for any accessory unit, then some of this may not apply, but there are a lot of what ifs. And that's when you come to the Board of Health and talk to Mark and to Jessica about specifics about what to do. So that's why I'm going to give you kind of the high level overview. Okay, next slide. So once you get past just the general size and if there are any complications, you need to understand more about your septic. How big was it designed for? How many bedrooms? Is that really how many you have? How many rooms in the house? Did expansions take place at some point that maybe weren't recorded, or the septic wasn't updated at the same time? And then those are just some of the details that we would have to look at. Think about what it is that you want to do to accomplish that accessory dwelling unit. Is it that you want to carve off kind of part of your house, or you have a garage that you want to renovate and make it into sort of like a small apartment? Do you just want to have people use the existing bedrooms in your home and share the kitchen space with you? Yes or no? So consider what it is that you might want to do to achieve that accessory dwelling unit. It's possible once you get those ideas, as I said before, come and talk to the Board of Health about what would and would not work. We often have the records about what your existing septic system looks like. And so that can be helpful for them to be able to review it and say, yes, you could do X, Y, and Z, but if you want to do A and B, you're going to have to do something, expand your septic system or put in a new septic system. And then also having a Title V inspection, if you're going to move ahead with that, would also be important, just to verify that the system is working properly. So whatever you want to do might be able to support it. Okay, so next. All right. So then your options. If your current septic system is not sufficient to handle adding on or having this special unit that you can rent out, so you could expand the septic system. And if the system was built after 1995, there might be the possibility to expand it. Like just add a little bit more to it. Keep what you have now and add a little bit more. And again, that devil's in the details on some of these things, but it is an option. I also note here that you might have to add a larger septic tank as well. Besides just adding on to the leaching field, you might have to expand the septic tank, replace it, or add another one. So you can expand the existing septic system. You might have to just replace the whole system if it didn't turn out to be currently functioning adequately, or if it's older than 1995, or if there's some other challenge. And then you can also reduce the number of rooms or bedrooms in the accessory unit. So you thought it'd be really nice to make a 5-room accessory unit. Maybe that's just too many for your septic system. Okay, and next slide. It could also be possible to reduce the number of rooms in the space that you want to use, so that then that room count can be applied to the accessory unit. So I should, at this point, highlight that almost all septic system sizing across the country is based on number of bedrooms, because there is a number of bedrooms, but also combined with how many rooms are in a house. And that is because they're assuming 2 people per bedroom, and that just helps figure out how much water might be used. So it's just the starting point, number of rooms and bedrooms for septics, especially here in Sherborne. So in any case, ways to reduce rooms might include taking 2 smaller rooms that you have now and combining them into a large room, and that already gives you sort of a free room to apply to the accessory unit. So those are, there are other options, too numerous to describe, which is what we spend a lot of time doing with people who come in looking to expand their homes in general, and is to work through those kind of details on what would work for both them and for their septic. Another possibility is to, going back to if you don't have enough land, or if the land you have can't support a larger septic system, is to think about acquiring a piece of land. Not an easy task, but I just wanted to mention it because it might be an option, and we have had that come up, not much, but maybe once that I can think of in the time that I've been on the board. And next slide. Oh, I think that might be the, no, okay, great. All right, there's a lot, as I said, a lot of details that go along with this, but any questions on? Okay. So the accessory units was a policy passed by the town a few years ago. Was it 5? It was a way for people, anyone in town who wanted to either have the company or the income from having someone share their property, so that they could have what's called an accessory unit. Often the past, in-law apartments was a common term that was used in town. And so we have had a number of those come before us, but yeah, and that's generally what it is. Yes. Oh,
This is a more general question, but, and I know there are a lot of variables, but what would be the average life expectancy of a modern septic system that was installed after 1995?
I'll give that a try. Forever. If you maintain a newer septic system, and newer septic systems are an enclosed environment, that septic tank has to be maintained and pumped out, but they should last for a long time because they've been designed properly by an engineer, reviewed by the Board of Health. And if you take good care of it and maintain it, usually if you have one person living in a facility, at least inspect the septic tank once a year, and every 3 years pump it. But if you've got a family of 5 or 6, most likely that septic tank is going to require pumping every year. And now the newer systems have something like a air filter on a car. There's a filter prior to the effluent leaving the septic tank, and any fine particulate matter that could clog that leaching field gets captured in that effluent filter. So there's a lot of good new technology that's been available. So I would say forever if it's maintained properly. But then again, someone might say nothing lasts forever.
Explain the Title V, like if somebody, I get like the unit that you have to have Title V inspect. But we talked about like people that maybe want to move and that Title V, how it would affect somebody moving to that to put in a new system and how that would work.
Okay, so that's what Mark and Jessica are going to address, that single topic. So before we move on, any other accessory dwelling unit questions?
Property or no is considered extra. You know how some places do those little tiny houses?
That would be right, correct. A zoning board of appeals question. But in a way, some of the things that we've seen, there was an in-law unit put on a property near Farm Pond, and that was a separate little house, basically. So I think those are very possible, have been, but they have been in the past. This ADU rule was meant to expand and to kind of encompass beyond just family members. Anything else? Okay. Which one of the baton?
Ladies before gentlemen, if you want. No, okay. Well, hello again. And you may have talked to me before, but the one slide that came to mind that I just saw earlier was the play being handled at the co-housing with the Trojan horse. Please realize there are no walls at the Board of Health, no walls at all. Call us. We're real people. We know the codes are very complicated, but you don't need to get a Trojan horse to get through any walls. There's no walls there. We're open. We'll try to help you because it is in all respects very complicated. And I've worked with it for a good amount of time through the years. I've been the health agent here. And I still am looking for answers. So it's not easy. And by all means, we're open door. Give us a call. I'll be glad to help you. Title V inspections was the question. And that gets complicated. Back in 1995, the state changed the Title V codes to a new version, which requires if you sell your home, you need to have your septic system inspected. And there's always the issue that it may fail. I can tell you it will fail automatically per the local regulations, and it should if it's a cesspool, because cesspools aren't environmentally sound. You're basically putting raw sewage right into that groundwater that was shown. But you can maintain one, but when it comes time to selling, a cesspool would have to be replaced to a modern system. Other ways the septic system can fail is if when they go out to the distribution box, that's just prior to the leaching field, and it shows that the effluent going out is rising up into the pipes. That's an automatic failure too. What I would suggest if you're a little concerned about this is you can have your own Title V inspection just for your use. You don't have to publicly disclose it to us, because if it is failing, at least you'll know ahead of time. And then, you know, do what you need to do. Talk to the experts that might do the Title V inspection. You can give us a call for general questions. Just don't tell me your property, because within 2 years of a failure, you need to replace your septic system. So that's how it works. It's a comprehensive inspection, 17 pages of overview. But again, sometimes it's good to know ahead of time. So I would suggest if you want to do exploratory Title V inspection, usually the person that pumps out your septic system is the person that would be doing your Title V inspection. They could even tell you in advance if they don't want to do the comprehensive, kind of where you're standing, just so you're not thinking, oh no, is my system failing? That person should be able to help you.
To add to what Daryl and Mark just said, when you have a Title V inspection, there's the Title V regulation for the state code, and then we have our local regulations, which actually differ between towns. So I could tell you, for example, my parents put an accessory dwelling, an in-law apartment on the back of their home for my grandmother 7 years ago in Needham. So Needham's regulations may be slightly different to Sherborne. So definitely reaching out to us and asking, we can help you on a case-by-case basis. Another thing that I wanted to mention, Daryl discussed alternative options in case your septic system is not compliant. It's not going to be big enough. There are some really great financial assistance opportunities through the state that they offer for installation of Title V new septic systems. And there are some handouts here. For example, there's a community septic management program. There are betterments, which offer financial help to homeowners with failed systems. There are homeowner septic loan programs. These are all contingent on eligibility criteria, et cetera. I have also included links and applications if you're interested looking into it. You could also get a tax credit. So the state offers a tax credit. It's up to $6,000 over 4 years to help defray the cost of septic repairs to your residents. And additionally, there are federal programs. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development can offer low-cost financing options for septic system replacements or improvements. And then the USDA Rural Development Program, it offers government loans to assist lower-income rural homeowners who are in need of repair. So I also included our contact information on this resource in case you have any questions.
And that's a great program. It's like a college loan. Usually it's 5% or less. So if you're planning to stay at your house and replace the septic system, that's a great program. Years ago, when it first started in 1995, when they changed the Title V regulations, that program started, and cities and towns were doing most of the paperwork themselves. But now that's been given up due to the lengthy process. But you can go to a bank and they'll recommend the banks that offer these low interest loans, like I say, like a student loan, especially if you're planning to stay and want to replace your septic system.
When you mentioned that, made me think that the Board of Health does not get involved in this aspect of it, but we've certainly heard from homeowners who are selling and they know that the septic needs replacement, that a variety of mechanisms have been worked out between buyer and seller, where maybe the price is reduced a bit, and therefore, and the duty for replacing the septic system gets passed on to the new owner, and then they undertake the effort. And sometimes there's an advantage to the buyer for that because they may want to expand the home. So they would rather that the current owner didn't spend the money, put in a system that's smaller than what they are going to want for their needs when they move in. So there are different mechanisms, or splitting the cost or agreeing to do it together. Again, not what we get involved in, but that's what we hear about people doing.
So true. That is so true, as Daryl just noted. In fact, I think the majority of the home sales now are being completed that way, where the new person, the buyer, ends up completing the septic system. The only thing that they usually want to know in advance is what type of systems this is going to entail. And that first step would be getting an engineer to go out and do soil testing to see what type of soils you have, where the groundwater is located. That's not too complicated, and that's usually done as the first step. And usually the seller is doing that step, but then they have enough information for the engineer or designer to give any potential buyer a cost estimate on what it may entail. Go ahead.
Relative to that, will banks provide a mortgage under those circumstances, or does that have to be a cash sale?
I've seen, again, I don't deal with the banks, but I've seen many buyers handling the actual replacement of that septic system. So I presume they're getting their loan money, and typically they'll put some clauses in there so that, you know, the previous seller, if something happened where it was a different situation after the soil testing. But in most cases, it seems to be a pretty smooth transition once that soil testing is completed.
So this was a while ago, almost 29 years ago. We bought our house and got a mortgage and took on the responsibility for redoing the septic. So not a guarantee that it would still work today or depending on the lender, but it did work for us. The other thing I was going to say, so Mark mentioned the soil testing. Say a buyer says, well, gee, I want to know what, if I could even do anything. I want to do soil testing on your property before I buy the property. Could be a request, but this is a good time, again, checking with the Board of Health on what files we already have that might give information to that future buyer so they wouldn't have to do that sort of while you're trying to manage your property with the dug up yard.
I'm just going to add one thing that I always tell people, these were excellent graphics. Thank you, Daryl. And EPA, thank you. But if you've ever gone through a cut of ledge on a highway in the winter and you see icicles coming out of that cut of ledge, those are the fissures that Daryl put on the graphic. So that's exactly how and all those icicles are all different formations. So that's exactly a good visual of how it works underground, because our highway system cut through quite a bit of ledge in some areas. Oh, we're here. Real people.
So you have a lot to digest today. Co-housing, shared housing, Title V. Every time somebody moves in our neighborhood and we see the Title V trucks, we panic. So, so next week is the last week, and we're going to be talking about decluttering. If you decide to stay in your house, you can declutter. If you decide to move, you will need to declutter, but there's also people that can help manage the whole process. So that will be next week. Team and Prezzer is coming, and I will send out all the information today. And if you have any other questions or need anything, you can always email me. And thank you for coming. Have a good afternoon and a nice long weekend.
No,